Good morning. My name is Dave Hunsinger. This is Keystroke Live, the Wednesday, August 12th edition, and today we're going to talk about EMV. Keystroke Live, same login information every Wednesday at 10 a.m. I'm going to start off with a little bit on just what is EMV, and it's a technical standard. It was created for smart cards or chip cards that a lot of people call that. There's an integrated circuit on the card. To use them, you either have to stick the payment card into a device, a reader, and they call that dipping, or they do make the actual physical card that has contactless in it, so it's got an NFC, a near field communication chip in there, so in that case you could just tap the card on the device. The EMV stands for EuroPay, MasterCard, Visa. It's managed by an organization called EMV Co., which is a joint venture between all the major card brands. Visa and MasterCard have taken that EMV standard and added on to it to do card not present transactions via EMV. MasterCard calls that the CAP or chip authentication program, and Visa is dynamic passcode authentication. The origins of EMV trace back to 15th century France. No, in the mid-'80s, they were just looking a way to prevent card fraud, came up with EMV. It developed. The actual first EMV standard was in 1993. I believe it was EMV 3.1. Today we are currently using EMV 4.3, and it was so successful in France it spread throughout Europe, and then Asia, South America, Canada has been the most recent to adopt the use of EMV cards for payment technology. There are really two big benefits that EMV offers. It's fraud reduction for card present transactions, so that's the big thing that it does, is it prevents a merchant from taking a fraudulent card. The other thing is it offers offline transactions, and in France in the 1980s and 1990s that was a big deal because there wasn't the internet infrastructure that there is today. Really in the US today nobody does offline transactions. That's kind of a thing of the past, so that part of EMV really isn't used. The physical card, there is a metal square on the front of the card, and that's the contact plate that connects the chip that lies underneath. That's embedded in the card in resin and a lot smaller than that big contact plate on the front. So the contact plate connects the chip to the device, and that provides data connection and power to the chip when it's plugged in. So the couple of things there is, with the chip, when you put the card in there, you have to put it in at the beginning of the payment transaction, and you've got to leave it in there to complete, because information is transferred back and forth between the chip. That also makes it a little bit slower, but that's not really noticeable because there's a lot more information, and information is going two ways. It's going from the chip to the device and from the device to the chip. The chip actually runs applications or apps, and there's usually one or two running on there. If it's a debit card, there is a bank-specific application that runs on the chip, and then what they call a common app that is also on the chip. EMV certification, a lot of people talk about it. It's a big process, and part of our setup and what we're doing at SBS and Keystroke is we're not a part of the EMV certification. We are an out-of-scope solution so that the devices and software are being certified through Mercury or Cayenne, so we don't have to get involved in the level 1, 2, and 3 certification process for EMV. The EMV 4.3 standard consists of 4 books, each book being about 200 pages. So there's a lot of technical information. The first book that is maybe only 189 pages. It's just the chip specifications, just about what that physical chip on the card has to do. The payment application that we use with Mercury is the DSI EMV US from DataCap Systems, and then Cayenne runs an app on their servers. Now, with the Cayenne Genius, it's a little bit different data path because Keystroke initiates the transaction with the Genius, but when the card is dipped into the Genius communicates directly with Cayenne servers, and we never see any of the card data. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Keystroke POS on EMV with Mercury. The EMV development is again being done by that DataCap Systems with Mercury's assistance. They have determined what devices would be certified. So it's really up to them, and they obviously listen to your input and my input, but they make the final decision. The first one they have done is the Verifone VX805. Now, because they're doing the Verifone VX805, that doesn't mean that like the Verifone MX915 or MX925 is also certified. Each individual device has to be certified. There are some that have families, so they're very similar devices, like the next device that Mercury is talking about doing is the Ingenico ISC 250. There's the 250 and the 350 that's basically the same devices, only one has a bigger touchscreen on it. So with the VX805s, we've completed all the testing, works, the support's being added to version 8 that we will release once we've been able to test the cards. We can't do that until DataCap and Mercury have finished their certification that they're in the process of. That's through the EMV Co. So there's a chain here, and it's kind of a lot of the timing is out of our hands. We are waiting for Mercury and DataCap to finish that, then we will be able to implement it. The other thing, and I'm going to go back a slide there, if you see the VX805, very inexpensive device. I think you can buy it from Mercury for under $250. It's got a card swipe and a dipper, the slot for the EMV on it, pin pad, but it doesn't have a signature capture. Pretty much now, I believe Visa was the holdout to do chip and pin, but I know Discover, American Express, and MasterCard are all doing chip and signature, which I think I've heard it termed now, it's chip and choice, not necessarily chip and pin. Pin's a big part of the security. I don't necessarily understand why they're avoiding that. I think they feel the American public wouldn't like doing the pin, so that's why they're going with signature. But Visa's coming around, and I believe their cards are going to be issued as chip and signature as well. I talked about the little app running on the chip. That app is different if it's a chip and pin or chip and signature. So you can't look at the card and tell if it's a chip and pin or chip and signature card. It's the app running on it. So you could have two very similar looking cards, one being chip and pin, one being chip and signature. The clerk just has to follow the prompts from the device to know what's going on there. The Ingenico ISC 250, it does have the signature capture. It's a little bit more expensive, coming in at about $600 dealer cost. Now, Keystroke POS and EMV with Cayenne is we completed Cayenne's EMV certification for developers in July. Got everything in there in version 8, ready to go. Cayenne is still working on completing their level 3 certification. When they get that done, we will be able to do it. We thought we were going to be doing some test transactions yesterday, but that didn't happen. We're just getting set up to do that. But we believe we will be the first developer and have the first merchant processing EMV cards with Cayenne. Neither Cayenne nor Mercury right now has anybody processing EMV through a integrated POS solution. There's a picture there of the Genius. It's got the dipper below the pin pad, the card swipe. It also has the near field communication that's a receiver behind the screen. The Ingenico ISC250 has that. So the near field communication with a chip card or with a mobile device, a telephone or an iPhone, you can do with the ISC250 or with the Genius device. Really, it boils down to data security. We want data security is the key to all of this. EMV reduces fraudulent card use. That's the one thing it does. A good rule of thumb is EMV is about authenticity. So with the EMV, you are authenticating that the person with the card is the actual card holder. PCI is about encryption and security. So you need to use those two hand in hand to do that. EMV doesn't necessarily reduce your exposure to a card breach or skimming. That's where PCI comes into play, and you want to be sure you're doing them hand in hand. The end-to-end or point-to-point encryption and tokenization play an important part of preventing data breaches. We're committed to only bringing you PIN devices that are point-to-point encrypted and use tokenization. So the VX805, the ISC250, the Genius all do the encryption and tokenization. We want to be sure that that does that. And that prevents the data breaches versus the EMV card prevents the fraudulent use of a credit card at your store. Now, there's many experts saying, hey, the fraudsters and the criminals are going to, rather than going just after big stores and big chunks of data, they're going to start going after smaller stores now. Especially fraud is really propagated by people stealing card numbers, creating fraudulent cards with swipes, and going and buying resellable merchandise at stores. And that's really how they make their money, off of the use of fraudulent cards. And they think that's going to boil down to some smaller merchants that they'll be focusing on because they haven't made the switch to EMV. Canada started to switch to EMV, I believe, in 2012. And I think right now, it was 2 or 3 years, they were about at 50%. I think they're at about 70 or 80% of merchants have adopted the EMV right now, but it's been a slow process. And there's not going to be on October 1st a big boom or anything like that. It will be a process to get it done. Mercury has assured us that they'll complete the VX805 certification soon, and they have even said that they'll try to do the Ingenico ISC250 by the end of the year. What actually happens, we're dealing with software and hardware and the third-party certification program, the EMV Co. So that's all out of our control and somewhat out of their control. So we don't know what exactly is going to happen there. But you want to be sure, especially with the liability shift that happens in October, and what that liability shift is the card brands, rather than sucking up the fraud, are going to pass it along to the weakest link in the chain. So if there is a card issuer that hasn't sent out EMV cards, they might be at fault. There's a merchant that hasn't adopted EMV, they might be at fault. But they're going to pick out the link in the chain that's basically the weakest. Now remember, the liability shift, it's for that one transaction where you took a fraudulent card. That's why you want the encryption and tokenization so that you prevent the data breach and protect the store at large. Thanks for attending. That is all I have to say. I'm going to unmute everyone. Hopefully we don't have too much background noise, and I am open to answering any questions.
I don't blame you at all.
I'm done with her. I'm done with her. Well, while she was here, remember this thing that I told you that I did that was ugly? I blocked him from her call list.
Now, what is that?
You've got some nice background noise going there. But
He's threatening again, talking about whoever.
I'm not sure who that is, but
Figured it out.
my name is, I'm going to mute everybody again here. My name is Dave Hunsinger. You can give me a call here at SBS or shoot me an email, davidh@keystroke.pos.com, if you have any questions or need any clarification. Trying to pass along as much information as we have, and to keep you posted. We will be probably sending out some emails and talking about this. We're going to talk to Mercury next week, so we will get to hear what they have to say about where they are in the process of doing all this. So feel free to contact me and tune in next week to get more on EMV and their perspective and Mercury's perspective of where they are and where it's going. So thank you very much for attending. Have a great Wednesday.